Hi and welcome to this course titled Building Your Own AI Chatbot. In this course, you're going to be building your own ChatGPT. You're going to be building a chatbot that is as powerful as ChatGPT. And how do I know that? Because you're going to be building it on the same powerful AI model that ChatGPT is based on. We'll begin by setting up an OpenAI account and creating our API key. We'll also spend some time explaining how OpenAI uses tokens to measure our API usage and what the pricing looks like, especially for the GPT model we'll be using in this course. We'll then build out our front end and add the necessary features for our chatbot to send and display messages. Next, we start working on our backend. We build up the Node.js app, add the necessary routes, then configure the Nodejs API library using our API key. We test this out by sending our first prompt and receiving a response from the OpenAI API. Finally, we bring everything together, connecting the front end with the backend and implementing a real-time communication between us and the AI. We fixed the issue of the AI losing conversational context and also add some little styling to improve the user experience. So in order to use the OpenAI API, you first have to register for an OpenAI account. So to make calls to the API to get response from the AI models, you first have to open an OpenAI account, and you do that by coming to the website and clicking the sign up button. So you hit sign up and it brings up their sign up page, and here you can register with any of these options. You can do the email, you can register with your email, and you can also register with a Microsoft account. We know that OpenAI is partly owned by Microsoft, so they have this very huge synergy with Microsoft. So you can open an account with your Microsoft account. If you already have a Microsoft account, you can just open an OpenAI account. You can also use Google. You can continue with Google, use it to log in, and also use Apple. So they are basically covering the big three here: Microsoft, Google, and Apple. So yeah, without no Facebook here though. Yeah, you can use your email, you can use a Microsoft account, and you can use a Google or an Apple account. Now, once you open this account, it automatically gives you access to things like ChatGPT, which made a lot of us know OpenAI. Like a lot of us haven't even heard of OpenAI before ChatGPT. So ChatGPT made OpenAI really popular. So once you open this account, you already have it comes with a ChatGPT account and also a platform account. So when you open it, you have a platform account, and you can, from the platform account, you can then have access to all the APIs that we're going to be that are provided by OpenAI, including the chat API that we're going to be using in this course. Now, once you set up an account and you log in, I have already logged in here. Like I said, you have access to ChatGPT, so you can use ChatGPT, you can use the APIs, and you can also use OpenAI's DALL-E. DALL-E is for generating images. A lot of those images you've been seeing online, those really cool AI-generated images, a good number of them were generated with DALL-E, some of them with Midjourney. OpenAI owns DALL-E, so that is their generative AI. So we are concerned about the APIs, so just go to the APIs. You can also just go to platform.openai.com. That's where you see all the APIs, and you can see all the APIs they provide. This menu changed some days ago before I recorded this video. This used to be chat and this used to be text completions, but now they've changed it to GPT, which now has chat and text completions under it. Chat is the one we're going to be using in this course, and you also have some best practices for using the GPT APIs. That is the natural language processing API. Then you have your embeddings API, which is used for analyzing data, search, classify, compare stuff. And also you have your speech to text, which they call Whisper. That's for converting audio and video files, for extracting text out of them to do something like transcription and stuff like that. We also have image generation API and fine-tuning API, which allows you to train your own model. So these are the things that you get with your OpenAI account. You also this account also comes with $18 credit, because using the API is not free. So it comes with an $18 credit that you can spread across using the API or generating images with DALL-E. So yeah, that's what you get with a new account. This is the starting point for you to use the OpenAI API, which is signing up for an account. So let's move on and see how we can get started using this, or rather configuring this account for our own use case. So in this video, you're going to be learning how to upgrade your OpenAI platform account to a paid account. Like I said, using the platform is not free, but it comes with this $18 free credit, right? And I think it runs out after 90 days or so. So once from the day you open the account, it starts reading, and if you don't use it within, I think 90 days, is going to run out. But as a standard user, what you want to do is upgrade to a paid account, so that whenever you want to use the API, you get charged. Your credit card gets charged. And OpenAPI charges based on tokens, and we're going to be looking at that much later. But for now, we're going to look at how to upgrade to a paid account. So the first thing you want to do is let's come up here and click personal. Let me see if this is bumped. Oh yeah, let's bump this up so that you can see clearly. Okay, so you come up here to personal, and let's go to manage account. So we go to manage account, and here you can go to the billing section. On this side menu, you can go to billing, and I have already set up a paid account, but that's why you see here it tells me cancel paid account. If you have not set up a paid account, you will see create a paid account here. So if you click it, it's going to take you to the page where you can add a payment method. You can add a payment method. You can add 1 or 2 payment methods, and you can also see your billing history here. You can come here and see your billing history. I upgraded not long ago, so I've not really been given an invoice. But here you can see your billing history monthly. And later I'm even going to be showing you how to set limits to your usage and all that. But for now, here is where you set up your paid account. Like I said, if you haven't set one up, this button would read different. It will say set up a paid account, and when you click it, you just add a credit card, and that is what OpenAI will charge whenever it wants to charge you on a monthly basis, I believe. Yeah, on a monthly basis. So here's how you set one up, and you can start using OpenAPI APIs without ever worrying of being, bounced because you ran out of tokens or something. So in this video, we're going to be discussing tokens and pricing. We're going to be looking at how OpenAI uses tokens to calculate your API usage and how that is being priced. Now, you might have heard of tokens before. Some of you might have not heard of tokens before, but you see, the OpenAI mostly gives you natural language models that can understand natural language, and they give you an output based on the natural language that you feed in. Now, these outputs can be a reply, like the chat and completions API. It can be a reply in natural language. It can be to generate an image, which is what DALL-E does. It can be to read and give you a transcript, like what Whisper does. So everything is mostly centered around natural language, and the models don't see the natural languages as text. They break it down into tokens. They don't see it as words or phrases. They break it down into tokens. And one good way to understand tokens is to think of them as like 75% of a word. That's even what the official OpenAI documentation states. So a token is more like 75% of a word. But to understand it better, let's go to a simple tool that they've provided called a tokenizer. Tokenizer that OpenAI has provided that you can use to analyze your tokens. So here we have the tokenizer tool, and in this text box, based on GPT-3, I can type in some text and see how many tokens it evaluates to. So let's say the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dogs. So quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dogs, and you see this text has 45 characters and 9 tokens. So it has broken it down, and it's giving me this very neat color-coded way of breaking it down, which here kind of looks like each word is a token. In a way, it looks like each word is a token. So let's try something different. But here we have 9 tokens out of 45 characters. Let's try something different. Let's say OpenAI generative models are not just limited to natural language. You can also generate images and transcriptions. Let's just say that transcriptions. Let me type that correctly. Transcriptions. So you can also generate transcriptions. Now, if you look at this very, very well, you can see that some words are actually broken down into more than one token. For example, OpenAI is broken down into 2 tokens here, which is Open and AI. Generative is broken down into 2 tokens. Models, 1 token, are not just limited to natural or 1 tokens. Then the language is broken down into 3 tokens, like lang, auge. So that is how models analyze natural language. That's how they understand the context of natural language and how they process natural language. And OpenAI uses those token count to understand how you're priced. Now, for a single request, for a single request to the OpenAI API, your total amount of tokens is the total amount of tokens in both your prompt, that is the request that you send, the message you send in your request, your prompt, and the response. Yeah, the response you get back. So the total amount of tokens in your request and your response is the total that you'll be charged for that particular request. We're still going to look at the pricing later on, but that's the total that you're going to be charged for that particular request. Now, also one thing you need to note is that every model, every OpenAI model has its limit, has the limit of tokens that it can take at once. That's why sometimes when you're using ChatGPT, you just see the answer cutoff. It's because you have hit the maximum number of tokens. So if we look at, I think in the overview page, is in the documentation. If we go to models, yeah, we go to models. There's a place where you can see their token limits. Yeah, you see, GPT-4, the maximum token is 8,192 in a single request. That's the maximum tokens you can have in a single request. So when you tell it to write a whole book for you with 322 pages, now you can know why it cannot complete that kind of task. So yeah, we also have different GPT-4 models. This one is a 32k token, meaning that in a single request you can process up to 32,000 tokens. We also have for GPT-3, which we're going to be using in this course, GPT 3.5 Turbo can process 4,096 tokens in a single request. That's the maximum. Note, this is the maximum amount of tokens in a single request. Your request can be less than this. You can even use maybe like 15 or let's say 200 tokens. But don't exceed this limit or your replies are going to be cut off. Now let's look at the pricing. I think we can find the pricing at openai.com/pricing. Let's do /pricing. Yeah, /pricing, and we can see how the pricing varies from model to model. So each model has a different price. We have the language models here, and like for GPT-4, which a single context can take 8,000 tokens. That's GPT-4. Then we have the GPT-4 32, which can take 32 tokens. For GPT-4, the base GPT-4, for 1,000 tokens, you get charged $0.03 for the prompt and $0.06 for the completion. That's for 1,000 tokens each. So for 1,000 tokens in the prompt, you get charged $0.03. For 1,000 tokens in the completion, you get charged $0.06. For the 32k context GPT-4, you have 0.06 for the prompt for 1,000 tokens and double of that for 1,000 tokens in the completion. For the chat, which we're going to be using in this course, the GPT 3.5 Turbo, we get charged a very low amount, which is really cool. 0.002 for 1,000 tokens. That's in one round trip. That's the request plus the response, as I described earlier. So we have others, Instruct GPT. These are base models that you can train. So they also give you prizes for them. Other Babbage, Corey, and DaVinci. The fine-tuning models also same embedding models that we talked about earlier that are used to analyze data, search, sort, and stuff like that. So yeah, this is the pricing for your tokens. And like I said earlier, based on the token count, GPT or OpenAI adds all those tokens to charge you for each request. We'll be using the GPT 3.5 Turbo and in this course, so we're going to be charged 0.002 for 1,000 tokens, which is really, really fair. And that's your quick walkthrough of the OpenAI token pricing. In order to use the OpenAI API, you have to be authenticated. So not just anyone can call the OpenAI API. And what OpenAI uses for its authentication is an API key. Yeah, it uses the API key strategy of authentication for users to be able to call its API. Now, let us, now that we have an account, now that we have a paid account, you can create an API key. You can also create an API key if you're still on the $18 free trial. But So it's the same process. You go to your personal, that's on the top right here. You go to personal and you click on manage account. And on the manage account page, you go down to user here. Here we have user, and you click on API keys. You click on API keys. You need this API key to call your API. Now I've already created one for this course when I was developing the application before doing this course, obviously. But for you can always you can create more than one, and the process is the same whether you're creating it for the first time or you're creating a new one. You simply click on this create new secret key. You click on this button, create new secret key, and when you click on it, it tells you to enter a name for your key. Enter a name for your key. Now for this one, I'm just going to say course demo API key. Course demo API key. So once you enter a name, this is actually optional. If you don't enter any name, it's just going to generate a random name for your key. But I want to be more specific because I want to know which application uses this key and for what purpose. So once you're done entering the name, you can click create secret key. It will automatically create a secret key for you. And one thing you have to note here is that you have to copy this key now and save it wherever you need to save it. Save it somewhere secure, because this is the only time you're going to be seeing this key. You are not going to see this key again. It's just going to show you a very abbreviated version of it, maybe like 4 characters in front and 3 characters behind, and that's all. You can't even edit it. You can't enter a password to reveal it. No, you can't. This is the only time you can see it. This is the only time you can copy it. So there's no copy button, even though it's hidden there. It doesn't provide you a copy button that you can use to copy it later. All this I'm just saying to emphasize the fact that you have to copy this now. Copy it, stick it somewhere safe in your environment variable, in your environment file, in somewhere secure so that you can use it later. And you can hit done. And yeah, like I said, it will only show you an abbreviated version of it, so you can't copy it again. If you're trying to edit it, it will just allow you to edit the name, that's all. And the best you can do is delete it. I'm not going to be needing this one. I just created it for this demo so I can delete it immediately. So yeah, that will not be useful anymore. I'm just going to revoke the key and just stay with the one I'm already using. So that's how you can create a key. You can also attach a key to an organization. For now, I'm just using a personal organization, but if you set up OpenAI account to have different organizations, you can actually link this to a particular organization so that it's only users from that organization that will be able to, use the key, authenticate with the API using that particular key. So that's how you create your OpenAPI AI key to use in your applications to authenticate against the API. So in this video, we're going to be learning how to set limits on your API usage and also how to monitor your API usage. Now, we just added our credit card. Like, how do we know that we're not spending too much? How do we know that we're not going to run into all those Amazon mistakes where someone gets charged like thousands of dollars for some mistake they made calling the API or using the service? That's what we're going to be doing in this video, trying to put checks and balances to our API usage. And to do that, the first place you can control that is by coming to the billing section here and going down to usage limits. This usage limits link. So you click that, and here you can set your limit, your monthly limit. That is, OpenAI, I don't want to spend more than this in a month. No matter how much I'm using the API, I don't want to spend more than this in a month, because who knows, you can write a React app that does use effect, and use effect starts firing like 1,000 times because of a particular use case you didn't handle, a particular edge case you didn't handle, and use case just starts firing. Use effect or something like use effects just starts firing because an event keeps happening, and before you know it, you've made like 500 calls to the API without even doing anything intentionally. So at first, OpenAI sets it to 120, and that's the maximum it allows. But I came down here to set it to 20. Yeah, I don't want to use more than $20 every month. So I don't even think I'm going to hit that with the kind of pricing that I'm seeing on the pricing page. I don't think I'm going to hit that, but I just want to put it there. I don't want to spend more than $20. And also you can configure a threshold, like, okay, at this point, alert me. If I have spent up to this amount, alert me. So I set that to $15. So anytime I've spent up to $15, yeah, that means I'm already probably doing something too much. So I want to be aware, and I want to be I want to be conscious that I'm actually intentionally using the API that much, and also try and control myself. So yeah, you can do that. And but OpenAI advises that you don't totally depend on this email, because the synchronous actions like sending emails can be very weird based on race conditions and stuff like that. So you might get the email maybe some minutes late or some hours late. So they advise that you check your usage, and that can be done here. This left menu under personal, under organization rather, you can just click usage and you can see how much you're using. For example, this was when my free credit expired. The grant that was given to me expired. But this is the new one I've set, and I've not used up to like a reasonable amount this month, because I've just been making few calls to the API. So yeah, you want to check your usage and the keep tabs on this page, so that you don't do too much. And also, another thing you might want to keep in mind is the weight limits that OpenAI sets on the APIs. You don't want to fire requests above these weight limits before, else you can be blocked. For example, based on each model, you have your request per minute. This is the amount of requests you can send in 1 minute. For GPT 3.5, which we're going to be using in this course, you can't send more than 3,500 requests in 1 minute. Same with the turbo version, which is just supported till this date and will not receive any updates after. Or rather, I don't know whether it's supported within this. I just know that these particular dated models have a limit to their support, so that's why they have this date tacked onto them. So just like the others, the chat, the text, you also have weight limits for the image, that's DALL-E, for Whisper, and others. So it does it requests per minute or tokens per minute, because you can just send like 10 requests, but it will be token heavy. So it also limits you based on tokens. So in your requests, don't pass 90,000 tokens every minute. Don't send or request something that would require more than 90,000 tokens every minute. So also try and keep this in mind when you're coding, so that you can be aware of these limits and you can consider them in how you call the API. So in this video, we're going to be cloning our project. That's the base project for this course. I have set up a seed project for this course so that we don't waste our time on some boilerplate stuff. So let's get into that. So this is the AI chatbot, is on my repo, and I'm going to be putting this link in the video description so that you can grab it. So yeah, we're going to be cloning this base project branch. Make sure you don't clone the main branch, else you're going to be pulling the whole project. You have to clone this base project branch. So let's get that. Just going to go to my command line, and we're going to say first, let's grab the link. Let's grab the link. That'll be this. Yeah, let's just grab this, the SSH link. So back to the command line, we say git clone -- single -branch, then -- branch. The branch we want is the base project branch on this repo. Yeah, on this repo that we just copied. So yeah, we can just go right ahead to hit enter and start cloning that right away. So now that we've successfully cloned the project, we can just say ls, and we can see our AI chatbot. This is the AI chatbot on the base project. If we go into this AI chatbot, or AI, A.I, yeah, I say ls, you see we have the backend and the front end. Right now the backend is just an empty folder, just kept it there. We're going to build it out from scratch. It just contains a package.json. If we check what is inside the package.json, it's just number boilerplate stuff. But the front end, we can actually run the front end right now. So I'm just going to go out of this, let me clear. Then we can run the front end. We can run the front end with the HTTP server module from npm. So let's say npx HTTP server front end. npx allows us to run modules that we don't have installed. So I don't want to install this globally, I just want to run it straight with npx. If I want to install it globally, I will use something like npm install -g or something like that. So npx http server frontend. Let's run that. The frontend has an index.html file that we'll be running through later on. But for now, I just want us to run this project and see what we have, what we're going to be working with. So now our frontend is running, and it's running on localhost 8080, or this particular IP address. But this is the one for localhost. So I'm just going to copy that, copy this, and go to the browser and load it up. Load this up. And we have our chatbot. Let me boost that up a little bit so we can see it clearly. Yeah. Chat with AI. And now if we enter anything, let's say it does nothing. It does nothing right now. We're going to be adding functionality to it later, but this is our base project. This is where we're going to be starting from. And from here, we're going to build this out to be an intelligent chatbot that uses GPT 3.5 to have a conversation with users. So in this video, we're going to be walking through our seed project so that we can understand what we're working with. As you can see, it contains 2 folders and a git ignore file that just ignores most of the normal stuff. We have the backend folder that just contains a package.json file. This is all boilerplate stuff, just names the project as AI Chat Backend version 1. The main entry point is going to be server.js. It has just one script, a test script. And yeah, all this other boilerplate stuff that were scaffolded from npm init. So yeah, this is basically what is inside the backend project. We're going to be building it out much later. The main focus here is going to be the front end, where we have our index.html file. For this course, I decided not to use any framework because we all have our framework preferences. So I'm just going to be using what we all are familiar with, which is plain JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So that's what we're going to be working with. And let's put it aside. Yeah, let's put it aside, and let's wrap this view so that we can see everything. Yeah, good. Get rid of the horizontal bars. So this is a typical HTML file with all the bells and whistles. First we have this link to Bootstrap. I decided to use Bootstrap for this project because it's old and common, so just to get some basic styling in. Then we have an Axios script here. This is what we're going to be using to make our API calls, because we're going to be calling the backend that we're going to be building. So we use Axios, the Axios library for that. This is the minified version that has been linked there from a CDN. And let's go down, some basics. Arrangement for the chat box itself. This is where the chat box is. This is the chat box. This is the title, chat with AI. And we have here where the messages are going to go. That's an ID of chat box, so we want to note that because we're going to be using that in our JavaScript. And here is the input field, the one below the box. It has an ID of input box, and here where you type your message, placeholder says type your message, and this is the button. This is the send button, and it calls a send message function that we're going to be writing out soon. So yeah, that's basically what goes on here, and all our JavaScript is going to go in here. In the next videos, we're going to be adding this JavaScript, and we're going to be making our application to have a little bit of life. We're going to be bringing some life into our application, and we're going to be able to build interactivity into this app before we then go and build the backend. So that's a walkthrough of the application. You've already seen what it looks like here in the browser, chat with AI. And now we understand what the code looks like, what we're working with. So in the next video, we are going to be adding some functionality. So in this video, we're going to start building out the functionality in our front end. Now, first I'm going to define what we want to do before we start writing any code. So the first thing we want to do is that we want this front end to be able to take and display messages here. So what we want to do is that when we type in a message and we click send, we see the message here. Now there are going to be 2 types of messages: the ones that we type ourselves and the response from the AI API. So what we're going to do is that when we type in a message, let's say I, and we hit send, our message is going to be displayed and it's going to float to the right. And when the response comes from the AI, the AI response is going to show on the left. And that's how our conversation is going to go. It's going to be us, the AI, us, the AI, us, the AI. That's what we want to do. So Our messages are going to be floated to the right, the AI messages are going to be floated to the left, and we have ourselves a conversation. So we're going to be writing the sendMessage function to do that. Whenever we hit send, it's going to take in our message, then call the AI through the API that we're going to be building, and a response will be displayed under our message. So let's get into that. Let's go to Visual Studio Code and start that. So here in Visual Studio Code, we're going to scroll down and go to where JavaScript lives. So now let's start writing our sendMessage function. Let's say function sendMessage. This sendMessage function, sendMessage. So it takes no arguments, and we have our function. Open and close the curly braces. So we are in our function. So the first thing we want to get our elements. So we first want to get our input box. So not our input box. Let's get our let's start with the input box. Let's go with input box. That's where we enter our own message. We say document dot get element by ID. Document dot get element by ID, and we know that our input box. Let's scroll up. Our input box has an ID of input box. So input box. So get input box. Scroll down and just give that to our get element by ID function. So document.get element by ID input box. We have a reference to our input box element. That is this input box. Let's go back. So next, let's get what the user types into this input box. We're going to say const message. That's what we're typing, and that is going to be input box dot value. The value property of this text box, that will be input box dot value. So we have the message. Now what we're going to do, we're going to be calling a function that we're yet to define. That function is the function that is going to take care of putting messages, our own messages, to the right and putting the AI messages to the left. So I'm just going to call on that function even though we haven't defined it yet. That will be the append message function, and the first argument is going to take is the message. That's the message that we type in, and we're going to tell it who sent the message, and that is going to be user. That's us, user. The user sent the message. So append message is going to take these two arguments and it's going to decide where to display the message in our chat box. And just after we do that, just to make the user experience responsive, we clear our input box. Just say input box dot value equals an empty string. So we just clear our input box so that our message will not just be lying there. So once we have the message, we can now call the AI. We can now call the AI through our API that we're going to be designing, that we're going to be building in the backend. So to do that, let's first get a try catch in so that we can catch errors if they occur. We can catch any errors if they occur. Now inside our try catch, we are going to call our API. So const response equals, now we're going to be using Axios and we want to use the async await promise style. So I'm going to say await Axios dot, it's going to be a post request dot post. We're going to send a post request and that's going to go to our API. But for now we don't have our API, we don't build the backend yet, so we don't even know what the endpoint is. So I'm just going to put a placeholder here and say API endpoint. So we're just going to leave that there. We're going to fill this in later. Now we're going to send our message, and this is how we're going to send our message. We're going to send it as message. So we're going to send our message to the API. We're going to send a message property that says message. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Now we can just write it in a short form and just do this. Yeah, this works too. But let's just leave it like this to be more verbose. So we're going to send a message property that is called message. Now we might be adding to this later, but that's much later in another video. So for now we're just going to say, yeah, we're sending the message. And once we do that, first let's take care of this. We can see a red squiggly line under this, and this is because I'm using await inside a function that is not async. So I need to define this function as async. So I'm going to say async function. Yeah, async function, send message, and then I can peacefully use this await keyword. Now let's scroll down, and once we have our response, we want to get the message inside, and use this same append message function to help us display it, so that it can display it to the left this time. So I'm just going to call append message and give it a message. Now for now I'm just going to say response dot data dot, we're going to call this AI response, just to be specific. So the response of the AI response, and this we're going to say it is sent by the bot. Yeah, it's sent by the chatbot. So this was sent by the user, so it goes to the right, and this is sent by the chatbot, so it goes to the left. So I'm just going to say yeah, get this message, and it's sent by the bot. Now what happens when we have an error? What if we have an error, which we're most likely going to have because we don't have this field in yet, but let's just see what happens. So we have an error. We're just going to say console.error. We want to see the error, console.error. Just give us the error so that we can investigate it and put something on the screen to show us that, yeah, we don't have our desired response yet. So we're also going to be using append message for that. So it's just where the chatbot response is going to go, is just going to put the error message so that we can know that, yeah, there's a problem. Append message, I'm just going to tell it error occurred while fetching response. And this message is also going to come from the bot. Yeah, it's going to come from the bot. I can say system, but here we're using bot. So this also comes from the chatbot telling you that there's an error. So yeah, that is all good. I think we're done. Yeah, this is send message function. And yeah, this is how we call the send message function. In the next video, we're going to be writing the append message function. But yeah, we have the send message function, and we know what it does. It's going to call the API and display our messages using the append message function. So in the previous video, we wrote this send message function. That's the function that's going to be called when the button is clicked. That's the message box button. The send button is clicked, and this is going to call our API to get a response from the AI. Now this function uses this append message function that we're here to write. This is the function that is going to be displaying the messages in our chat box, and it's going to be deciding which messages go to the right, that will be our user messages, and the messages that go to the left, which will be our bot messages, that the messages coming from the chatbot. So let's write this append message function. Let's go just under our send message function. Let's go function add message. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is get our chat box. That's our chat box display. And to do that, let's say const chat box equals document dot get element by ID. And what's the ID of the chat box? Let's scroll up, and it's chat box. Yeah, the messages will be appended here. It's chat box, so we'll just pick it, go down, and stick it in here. Good. Now let us go on. This function receives two arguments. The first argument is the message that we need to append, and the second is the sender who is sending the message. And as you can see, we've used bot and user. So let's go on. When we get our chat box and the message is to be appended, the first thing we want to do is create the message element. Oh, this append message. Sorry, this append message. Where did I get add message from? But just kept saying add message too much. Yeah, it's append message. Sorry. So we want to create the message itself. So we want to create a message element. So I'm just going to say const message element, and we're actually going to be creating a new element. So we're going to be adding a new element to the screen using document.createElement. Yeah, document.createElement. And which element do we want to create? Let's create a paragraph. Let's say paragraph. That's going to represent our message. So create a paragraph, and this paragraph is going to contain the message that we want to add, whether it's from the bot or from the user. Now we want to do some logic here. We want to do the logic that defines the position that the message is going to appear. Is it going to appear on the right for the user or the left for the bot? So to do that, we're just going to say this. We're going to be adding a bootstrap class to this message element. So it's a message element. Then we're going to access the class list variable. so we can add a class to it and more classes. But yeah, we set the class list. This gives us all the classes that this element has. So we say this is equal to sender. So it's equal to sender. We're going to be using the ternary operator for a logic here. It's equal to sender. Then we use the send. If sender equals user, let me just use single brace here. User. If the sender is a user, then add text right, which is a bootstrap class that aligns text to the right. So add text right. If not, add text left. Cool. So if the sender is user, that's us, wherever it's in the application, align the text to the right. If not, align the text to the left. As simple as that. Yeah. So once we have that done, let us add the message itself. For now, we're just going to call the inner element property, inner HTML rather, inner HTML property of our, should we use inner HTML for some styling? Or for now, let's just use inner text. Yeah, just to keep it simple for now. If we want to do more complicated styling later, we can make this inner HTML so that we have more to work with. So, but for now, we're just going to assign it to the message. Yeah, just give us the message, put it inside. Put the message inside the paragraph. And we've created the element. We have given it a class. Now we've added the message inside. We need to add it to the chat box. Yeah, we need to add it to this chat box. So how do we do that? We're going to say chat box dot append child. So just make this new element a child of this and append it to what is already there. So that will be message element. MSG element. Yeah, just append the message element. Now, once we add the message, it gets to a time messages are the amount of messages in the chat box is becoming big, and the chat box cannot contain the whole messages, so we might need to scroll. We need to scroll up so that we can see the latest messages. So to do that, we're just going to do a little trick, and that's by saying ChatBot, because we want it to do this automatically. So the scroll is going to scroll to the top. ChatBot just scroll top, and that will be set equal to chatbox dot scroll height. ChatBot dot scroll height. Yeah. So as the text starts to become more, instead of overflowing, we just scroll. So we scroll to the top using the height of the chat box as reference. So that would help us get that done. Now, this should take care of the addMessage function. Yeah, this take care of the addMessage function or append message. No wonder I wrote addMessage the other time. I kept calling it addMessage instead of append message. So this should take care of the append message function. And once we're done with that, I think we can test now. Yeah, we can test now. And yeah, we can test this. I don't think I have this running right now. So let me go back and where are we? Yeah, we're inside the project. So I'm just going to use npx http server, and yeah, load the front end. Good. And once again, we have our front end running at localhost 8080. So if we go to the browser now, just bring this down and refresh this in the browser. We should have the latest copy now. So let me just clear this. I hope we don't get any errors though. So if I say hello, it's sent. Bam. Yup, works as expected, even though we got an error here. But yeah, it works as expected. So now when we type something in, once we type it in, it goes up here into the chat box, and we see that this text box, this input field is cleared, and we get the response from the sendMessage function, which is currently an error because we've not put our API URL. We're not calling any endpoint yet, so it's just a string, and definitely that's going to return an error. So, but we have our front-end functionality. Looks like it's working fine. Let me just write a bunch of stuff. That we can test the scroll height function. Let's say OpenAI Just going to be typing some random stuff in here just to get a lot of stuff in. OpenAI, GPT. This is very GPT, Whisper AI, Whisper API, which is the speech to text. Yeah, you see? Ada model, which is one of the models. And as you can see, we have the scroll working. It's scrolling down. It's scrolling down so that we can see the latest messages, and we can scroll back up to see the previous ones. So we have our front-end functionality working fine, and now we can move on and start writing the backend. So in this video, we're going to start building out our backend. We're currently inside our project folder. We have the backend, we have the front end, and we have done some work in the front end. So now let's do some work in the backend. So we're going to our backend. Right now, we only have the package.json file that was scaffolded for the project. Just some boilerplate package.json here. So we're going to start building this out. We're going to build an Express app. So the first thing we want to do is install Express. So we say npm install Express and let that run. So Express has been installed. I also want to be able to receive request messages from the client, and for that, first I want to be able to receive post request messages. So I want to set up body parser in this app, and also I want to take care of CORS issues, all the cross origin request issues. So I'm going to be installing two packages, one called body parser and the other CORS. So npm install. Let me clear this so that you won't have to look so down to see what's going on. Is it clear? Okay. Let's say npm install body parser. That will help me pass the request so that I can receive it in the request body. And also, that's for JSON request or URL encoded from URL encoded requests, post requests. So we are installing body parser, and also I will install the CORS package to just take care of CORS issues. So I'm going to install these two and just watch it run. Okay, that's good. That was pretty fast. So now we have most of our dependencies installed. So let's go right ahead into Visual Studio Code. So yeah, Visual Studio Code, as you can see, in my package.json file, and I have body parser, and I have CORS and Express. In fact, the whole dependency section just came in. So I have my dependencies installed. We can then start writing our file. We mentioned that the main file is going to be the server.js file. So let's create that inside this folder. So go to backend and right click and say new file. And create server.js. Server.js. So that's good. The first thing we're going to do is bring in Express. So say const Express equals require Express. That gives us access to our Express package. The next one is going to be the CORS package. CORS equal require CORS. And we also bring in body parser. So body parser. Just write this as camel case. Body parser equal require body parser. Okay, so we have these three dependencies rather, and we can start writing our app. First, we set up our Express app. We say const app equals Express. We just call the Express function. Const app equals Express, and we can then just go down and say const port. Let's define the port. Const port equals process. Is that how we get it from the process? And that's the environment variable. An environment variable called port, or we just default that to 1330. So port, and we can do app listen. We can tell our application to listen on that port. So we say app.listen, listen on the port, and we give our callback and just say console.log app is on running, yeah, on pod. App is running on pod. App is now running on pod. So these are just a lot of express boilerplate stuff. So most of you know how to write all this. I just want to make sure that we're building the backend from scratch. So then let's set up our middlewares. Let's make sure that we set up our middleware. The first is cause. So we say app.use cause. Just call the cause function. Yeah. The next is for the body parser. For body parser, we say app.use use body parser.json. So we want to receive a request in JSON also. So yeah, body parser JSON. So this is basically everything for the Express app. Yeah, I believe so. Now we can run this app. We can run this application on our command line. So I'm just going to go to the command line and let's do node server.js. Node server.js. And our application should run. Yep, app is now running on port. Oh yeah, we should have said port here. On port 1330. So app is now running on port. Let me fix that. Let's fix that. App is now running on port. Yeah, port. Back to the command line. Kill that. Clear the screen. And say node server.js. Yeah, app is now running on port 1330. So we have been able to scaffold our Express app, and now we can start doing some more interesting stuff. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to safely add your API key into this project. That's the API key we created here, the OpenAI API key. That's the one that we created on the API keys page. Yeah, the one we created here. You don't want to add it in plain text, so you want to put it in something like an environment variable. And to do that, we're going to be using the .env library. The .env library. It allows us to use the .env file inside our backend folder to store any environment variables. So the first thing we're going to do is go to our terminal and say npm install .env. Install the .env library. Going. And now that it's been installed, we go into our project, go to the backend folder, and then create a new file, .env. Make sure that this file is inside your backend folder. So .env, and once you have that file created, you can store any environment variable here. So for this project, I'm going to store an environment variable called OpenAI API key. Yeah, that's the name that we're going to be calling our OpenAI API key. You can call this any name you want, but this is the name I'm going to be giving it for this course. So you set this equal to a string, and this is where you stick in your API key. Yeah, I'm not going to be putting mine here definitely, but this is where you stick in your API key, and once you have it there, it then becomes accessible in your file here. You can access it by doing something like this, what we did for the port. So you can say process.env.openAI API key. Yeah, that's the name that you give it. Name that you give it here, OpenAI API key, and this will give you access to your API key. In the next video, we're going to be using this API key, or in a subsequent video, we're going to be using this API key to set up the OpenAI library. So yeah, that's how you use the .env library to store environment variables, and here we've been able to store our OpenAI API key. Let's just get that out for now, and see you in the next video. So before we start setting up OpenAI, that's the OpenAI library in this application, and calling the OpenAI chat API, let's set up some routes. Let's have some routes in this application. First, let's have a base route. Let's say app.get. I'm just going to set that to / shows that it's a base route. For the callback function, it says request response. And for this, we're just going to say res.send. Say welcome to the AI chatbot API. Welcome to the AI chatbot API. So that's just going to print out a welcome message. And now we're going to add another route, which is the main route that our front end is going to be calling to get a response from the AI, and we'll make that a post request. So app.post, then we'll name the route message / message, then do the request response, and then we'll set this will print a JSON message. So where's the JSON? And we'll just print a message. Just going to say, yeah, AI response. We had AI response. Say, how do you do? How do you do? Yeah, let's just put something there. Okay, so we have these two routes, and yeah, we now have routes in our application, and this is just going to most likely not going to stay as is, but this is the main one we're going to be working on when we are sending requests to our API. So with these routes, if I go to the command line and the app is not running right now, so we can run it by saying node. Let me clear this first. Clear, and just say node server.js. All works fine. So we can then, let's say, go to the browser and see we can access the app. So just can say localhost 1330, localhost 1330, the base route. Yeah, welcome to the AI chatbot. So our routes are working fine. Now we can start setting up the OpenAI library. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to set up the OpenAI library, and then subsequently we'll be sending our first message to the AI. We're going to be sending a message to the chat AI, that's OpenAI chat AI, and receiving a response, an intelligent custom response from the AI. We've already put our OpenAI key in that's the API key in our environment variable. So let's get right into it. The first thing we're going to do is install the OpenAI library. That's the OpenAI Node.js library. So I'm just going to go to the command line. Let's kill this application, and we'll say npm install OpenAI. The OpenAI library is called OpenAI. So we'll just say npm install OpenAI, and just wait for that to complete its installation. Going. And now it's done. We now have the OpenAI library in our application. So let's go back to VS Code. So go to VS Code, and let's start setting this up. So first thing I'm going to do is reference the library here. I'm just going to do it under body parser and say const OpenAI equals require OpenAI. So I have the OpenAI library, and now we can configure it. Let's scroll down and do the configuration just under, let's do it under body parser here. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is setting up a new OpenAI configuration. So I think I'm just going to destruct this. There are two libraries that will be needed here. So instead of just saying OpenAI, I'm just going to destruct this, and I'm going to need the configuration library, and I'm also going to need the OpenAI API library. So yeah, these two. Can I call them libraries again, or just modules? Configuration module, OpenAI API module. So you have these two. So first, let's set up a configuration. Let's say just say configure the comment here, configure OpenAI. So the first thing we're going to do is a const configuration, and there will be we'll set that to a new configuration. That's this configuration module or object. I'm going to set that up and put a configuration object inside it. And for now, the only thing we're going to be setting is the API key. There's the API key. I'll set that to equal the API key that we have stored in our .env file. So that will be process.env, and we have named that OpenAI API key. Now you can name this configuration key anything you want, as long as you're storing the same you're storing it with this name in the environment, whether using the .env strategy that we're doing here, or storing it in your server environment. So You reference the API key, and now we have a new configuration. Now let's set up OpenAI. Let's set up OpenAI. Say const OpenAI equals, that's the API. We say new OpenAI API, and we're just going to pass it the configuration that we just built. So we now have a handle to the OpenAI API, and we can call different methods on this, as we are going to be seeing much later. So now that we've configured our OpenAI library to have access to the OpenAI API, let us send our first prompt. Let's go into the message route to do that. So to begin, I'm first going to be setting up try catch, because I want to make sure that I'm catching errors properly. So yeah, try catch, and then we can call the OpenAI API. So the first thing we're going to do is say const, and we want a chat completion. We want to get a chat completion or just a response. Yeah. Let's call it AI response. Let's say, okay, we want the AI response. An AI response, and to do that, we call the OpenAI library, and we call the chat completion. Tell it to create chat completion. Sorry, create a chat completion. Create a chat completion, and we're going to be passing a few configuration into this, but this is an asynchronous call, so we'll need something like this returns a promise. So we are going to be using async await. So I'm just going to put async here and put await here. So async await. This is the method for creating the response to a message, to a chat message. There's also text completion, but for this we are using chat completion because we're trying to have a chat with the OpenAI API. So the next thing we're going to do is define the model we're going to be using. For this, we're going to be using the GPT 3.5 Turbo. Yeah, this is the recommended chat model to use. It's fast, it's stable, and it's very cheap considering the OpenAI pricing. Let me wrap this. My view seems to be moving horizontally. Yeah, let me just wrap this so that we don't have all these horizontal bars. But we can just push it to the side also. Okay, yeah, so we define our model. And the next thing to define is an array of messages. Now, OpenAI takes more than one message because you sometimes need to define what the chat is to act as. Maybe you want it to be a PHP expert, you want it to be a JavaScript expert, you want it to be a product manager or a project manager. You can actually define that with something called a system message. Then you define your own message with a user message. And sometimes when you need the chat to be aware of a previous context, you have to define something called an assistant message. But for this, we're just going to be defining a user message because we just want to send a simple message. We want to see our hello world to the OpenAI chat API. So we're just going to be sending one message. So for that, we're going to create an object, and that object will contain a role. Like I said, we're only doing the user message for now because that is the actual message. That is the actual message we're sending to the OpenAI AI. Message roles like assistant and system that I mentioned earlier is just for defining the role that the OpenAI chat is to act as, and the assistant one, like I said, is to give it a bit of context of what its previous conversation was. So we're going to be sending the user role, which is the current message we want to send to the AI, and then we have a content property that then defines the message. So for this, I'm just going to say, when was Node.js released? I'm typing this message in directly now, but you will definitely be using the request object to get this message in. But for this video, we're just going to be typing it in. So yeah, we have the message, and now let's print back the response. Let's print back the response. So I'm just going to take this response here and bring it in here into the try block. So bring it in here, and instead of my AI response being this hard-coded string, I'm just going to say AI response dot data dot choices, because oftentimes you can get more than one response depending on what you define as the temperature. There's actually a setting here that you can set. You can say temperature, and it will determine whether you should have diverse answers or very deterministic and direct answer. That is just one very short answer from the AI. But for now, we're not going to be setting the temperature, but still, we'll still need to take our response from this choices array, and then we say dot message, which is the actual message. Yeah, dot message. So that will be the response from the AI. Let's save that. If there's an error, we just want to console.error that. It's the error. Yeah. That's how we'll take care of the error for now. So let's test this out. Let's test this out. This is a post endpoint, so I'm going to be testing this out. I won't be able to use the browser. I'm going to use something like Postman. So let's just bring up Postman and say localhost colon. Our app is running at 1330, and we say /message. This is our first call to the OpenAI chat API. Let's see what we get. Hit send. See how it's going. It's taking a while. I hope there are no errors. Let me check my. Okay, I think there's probably an error. Oh, I wasn't running the app. Interesting. That's a Node server. Sorry about that. Node server. The server wasn't running. I was just writing code and all that. So yeah, Node server. Now let's go back to Postman and hit send once again. Now we should get a response. Still taking longer. I hope there are no errors. Let's go back. Oh yeah, there seems to be. Is this an error? Doesn't look like an error though. Oh, interesting. 401, I'm being blocked. That's strange. I'm just going to check on my API key and come back. So I think I've realized what the error was. I didn't activate my .env. Yeah, I'm using .env here, but I didn't activate it. Or rather, I didn't set it up. So I'm just going to come here and say const .env equals require.env. My bad. So I didn't set up .env, and just before anything, I'm going to call .env.config. Yeah, I didn't set up .env to reference this env file. So .env.config, and now I can have access to this environment variable. So let's test that once again and hope there are no errors this time. So go to the command line. Let's kill this, clear, and now say node server.js. Yeah, we're running once again, and let's hit the send button here once again. So now, as you can see, we have now gotten our response from the AI. AI response. The role is assistant. Now you'll be wondering, we sent a role of user, but we got a role of assistant. That's because this current message, this current response will now be the previous message of the next one. That's why I gave it the role of assistant. And the response that we got was that Node.js was first released on May 27, 2009. So now we have been able to successfully get a response from our AI. So now that we have written our backend and we have sent our first message to the OpenAI API, it is now time to point our front end here to our backend. This is to make sure that we're not sending an hard-coded message. We are sending a message that was sent from the front end, which is called a prompt, to the backend, and the backend processes it and sends it to OpenAI. So let's get right on that. Our app is running on port 1330 on localhost. So let's go to our front end. Let's open index.html. Just going to wrap the view here so that I don't have those annoying horizontal scroll bars. Yeah, and let's just put this aside. So let's come up here to where we have the endpoint. Now for this endpoint, we'll, instead of saying API endpoint, we now say http localhost /message. Localhost, we'll put our port, that's 1330, that's the backend port. But 133 localhost :1330 /message. So that's the endpoint we want to call. and we want to call it with a prompt. We're going to call this prompt. So we'll call it with a prompt, and that will be our message. That's the message that we got from the input box. So we'll call it with this message. And yeah, now our front end is now pointing to our backend. We can now call our backend successfully. In the next video, we're going to be setting up our backend to receive this message. So now that we've pointed our front end to the backend route, and we've told it to send this message that we're getting from the text box, the input box, as a prompt parameter. We've saved that. Now we can switch to the backend and receive this prompt. To do that, I'm going to go into server.js. Let's scroll down, and we're going to come into this message route, and we're going to get the message body. I'm going to say const. I'm going to use a destructor here and just say rec.body. Rec the body, and from the body I want to get the prompt. I want to get a prompt property. So I want to get this, and what we're simply going to do is replace this content with prompt. Yeah, we're just going to replace this content with prompt. Instead of sending an hard-coded message to the AI, we just replace that with prompt. So I'm just going to pick that and replace it. Yeah, replace it, say yep, good. We have it as that, and now we can test this out. Let's test this out. Let's see what we get. So save the backend, and I'm going to go to my command line. Let's expand this. So currently I'm inside the project folder, so let's go into the backend and let's run node server.js. Node server.js. Yeah, our app is now running. Now let's test it from the front end. Let's test from the front end. Now I'm going to type a message in here. Let's refresh the front end. Let's just make sure that things are up to date. I'm just going to refresh the front end so that I have the latest copy of the front end code. And now let's say, who is the current president of the United States? Let's hit enter and wait for the response. Yeah, this one place you might want to add a progress bar or something, but for now we just wait for the response from the backend. So now, as you can see, our message is coming as this object. So let's look at what that looks like. Definitely we need to reformat how we are receiving the messages. So if I go to more tools and go to web developer tools, let's just let's have it here. So if we type the question again, who is the current president of the United States, and hit send. Now, because we have the network tab open, we can see what we're getting. This is the request, this is the post request, and if I click on the response, I see that I have an object here, which is why it's showing this object. And in this object I have role and content. So definitely what I have to, I wish I could bump this up for you guys to see. Okay, yeah, bump it up. So if you can see this AI response, it has a role, which is assistant, and it has a content. They were just similar to what we saw from Postman the other time. So let's see how we format this as a response and make the front end to receive it properly. So to do that, let's just going to close out of this. So we have role and we have content. Those are the things that we have to deal with. So I'm just going to go back to VS Code. Now on the back end, we're going to break this down. We're going to break this AI response down. So we say message. The message will be just the message that we get back. So to be that content, that's the content, and we also want to send the role back. Just send the role back. So that will just be this same line, but we'll replace content with role. Replace it with role. So now this is what we're sending back. This is the object we're sending back. We're sending a message, a role property in the return object, so that when our front end receives it, let's go into our index.html file. So when our front end receives it, it takes this .data dot, it will then be dot message. This will be dot message. Get the message back, and if we have anything to use the role for, we also can use the role here, but for now we just need the message. So let's test this out. I'm going to go into where the backend is running and kill that, then run it again. Now running. Now let's go back to our front end. Let's refresh this. Now we can say once again, who is the current president of the United States. Let's hit send, and now hopefully we get our correct answer back in the right format. We're actually getting an answer. Yeah, now we have our answer. We have our AI response. It says, as an AI language model, I don't have personal opinions. Instead, I provide information based on facts. This is what the OpenAI says most of the time when they are not very sure of their answer. But then it goes ahead and says, as for your question, the current president of the United States is Joe Biden. Now, this is because this model has been trained up to 2021. Yeah, so it doesn't know if anything has changed because it knows the current date. So it doesn't know whether anything has changed between the time its training stopped and the current time. Probably the president was impeached or something. So, but as of 2021, the president of US was Joe Biden, and he still is. This is 2023, and he's still the president. So, yeah, now we have the response from our AI successfully displayed here inside our chatbot. So one thing you may have not noticed is that our AI, our chatbot, as much as it's fantastic and it's working now and it's giving us real information coming from the AI model, it is not aware of the chat's context. Now, this is what I'm trying to say. It can't give you follow-up answers. Like, you can't ask follow-up questions and get an answer where the AI understands your current context or your current session. It is not aware of this session at all. Now, to prove that, let me show you something. So we've asked it who is the current president of the United States. Now let's ask it another question, and we won't specify that we're referring to the United States president. We'll say, when was he elected? No, we didn't say when was Joe Biden elected. We say when was he elected, because we want to know whether it knows that we're currently talking about Joe Biden. So when was he elected? Let's hit send and see what it gives us. Now you see it says, I'm sorry, I need more context to determine who he is and when he was elected. Could you please provide more information or clarification? You see, this shows us that the AI doesn't know what we're talking about. And we just told it to tell us about who the United States president is. And it gave us the correct answer. But when we asked it the follow-up question that when was he elected, it doesn't have any idea. And that is where the message construction comes in. You know, when I was talking about the backend the other time, I told you that there are different types of messages. That's why we have the message array. And there's a message that you can use to tell the AI what its previous message was, what its previous response was, so that it can know, oh yeah, I was coming from this angle and now I can continue from there. This is the state I was coming from and I can continue from there. It is not state aware currently. So in the next video, what we're going to be doing is making it state aware, making it understand the context or the session we are currently in. So in this video, we're going to be taking care of the issue we discussed in the last video, which is the fact that our chat is currently not aware of this discussion. It's not aware of this session, so it cannot answer a previous message. We asked it who the current president of the United States was. It gave us the right answer. But when we asked when was he elected, when was he, not specifying the president, when was he elected, it told us that it doesn't know who he is. So it is not currently aware of this session. So in this video, we're going to be fixing that. The first thing we're going to do, is in the front end. So we'll go to the front end. Yeah, there's the front end. Let's scroll up. So outside this function, we're going to create a previous message variable. So previous message, let previous message. We're going to use the let keyword because we're going to be assigning this to different values later on. So we say let previous message, and what we're going to do is that in our request here, we're going to also send previous message. going to say previous message. We're going to send it as the same property name. So previous message is equal to previous message. So I'm just going to leave this here like this. So send a previous message. Now this is what we're going to do to make sure that we're sending the previous message to the API. Once this message is added, we'll also take this message and store it in the previous message variable. That's this response. We're going to store it in the previous message variable, so that the next time that this function runs, it's going to have that as its value. That's going to be the value of the previous message. The message we just received is going to be the previous message for the next conversation. So that is how we make our front end send the previous message. Now let's go and fix the backend. Let's go and apply this at the backend. So we'll go to the backend. So let's go back to our prompt. What we're going to be doing now is that we're going to be constructing this messages array from here. So first, from the request body, let's pick our previous message. No. So I copy previous message. So I'm just going to copy that from the front end so that I don't miss the spelling. Previous message, yeah, that's the name of the property. So we'll go to our backend, and we also get previous message from the request body. So we're going to have we're going to say let messages equal to an empty array. And then we're going to say if there's a previous message, then we want you to put it in the array first. So we say messages, the 0th index, and we construct the assistant message. Now this will have a role, and the role will be assistant. So it's the assistant message, and the content will be previous message. So role assistant, content, previous message. Good. Let me just put it in. Yeah. Let me put this in quotes. So role, content. Yeah. You can leave it like this or do it like this. I don't know what you want. It's preferable. So both works. So yeah, we have the previous message. If there's a previous message, put the previous message, and then you can then add our actual message with the push method, with the array push method. So we had our actual message, which is what we had before, which is this guy. So just take it here, cut it out. Let me replace this object I put here with it. So just take it out. That's our actual message. That's the user message, the one with the role of user. So now I'm just going to replace this with messages. These messages, I'm going to replace it with this messages. And because these are the same names, you can actually take this out too and just say messages. But whichever style you want. For this, I'm going to be, nope, not that. Let's just leave it as messages, just to be very clear. So yeah, I replace this messages property with the messages I'm constructing from up here. So what we're doing is that we create this messages array. We check if there's a previous message. So if there's a previous message, we put the assistant message first at the 0th index, and we just push on our actual message. So if there's no message, then our user message will be the only message that goes. But if there's a previous message, then we'll have the role assistant message first. So let us, I think we should be done with this. Let's see how this works. So to test this out, I'm just going to go to the front end. Let's go to the command line first and restart our application. Go Node server. In the absence of errors, our app is now running on port 1330. So let's go to our front end, and let's also refresh that as a hard refresh so that we make sure that we're getting the very latest copy of the code. And now let's continue. Let's say who is the current president of the United States. Enter. And then once again it tells us that as of his last training, the president was Donald Trump. Interesting. Now it tells us the president is Donald Trump. Are you sure he was the president as at 2021? Now you see, this is an intelligent AI. It doesn't give the same answers. It gives different answers. So unlike before, we got a different answer, And now we're getting a new answer. So it says it doesn't have real-time information as of the last update Donald Trump. Okay, yeah. So if Donald Trump was the president, no problem. But you see now it's aware of the context because we used E and it still tells us Donald Trump. So if it was Donald Trump, let's ask it, when was he elected? When was he elected? When was Donald Trump elected? Was he elected? And I see our nice Cobra is working. So yeah, Donald Trump was elected as the 45th president of the United States on November 2016 and was inaugurated on January 2020. So yeah, did E? And you see, as we keep using E, we're not referring to Donald Trump. We're just using E, and it's aware of the context. Did E ever hold a previous political position? Did he ever hold any previous political position? Yes, Donald Trump held no prior. Oh, I thought he was going to say yes. He held no prior elected political before becoming president. Yeah. Everything is still right with the world because I thought he said yes that Donald Trump had a political post before, and we can continue to ask it more questions like who did he run against? Who did Donald Trump run against? In the 2016 US presidential election, Donald Trump ran against Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton. So you see, we now have a chat bot that is aware of the context, and now everything is flowing smoothly. We're practically using ChatGPT right now. Yeah, we have our own ChatGPT that we built from scratch. So we've been able to fix the whole context problem with our AI, and now we can have reasonable conversations with the AI. So in this video, we're just going to be fancying up our UI a little bit. So I don't currently like the fact that every message that's both the user message and the bot message are styled the same way. So we just want to give it a little boost, a little differentiation in styling to make us easily and clearly see which one is a user message and which one is a bot message, like doing chatbot bubbles and stuff like that. So let's go to our front end and do that. So I'm just going to go to VS Code. I'm going to go to index.html. So let's scroll up. Just between the head and the body, I'm going to stick a style tag between that. So we have style. And so that I don't bore you with writing all the CSS, I'm just going to paste them in here. Just a little CSS. Just paste them in here and explain what it does. Push this backward. Yeah. So we have the general styling for each message, which is we just put them in a box and gives them a border radius to look a bit more fancy. Then we have a styling specifically for the user message, and we have one specifically for the bot message that just gives a different background. Yeah. So and it does the text align because we're going to ditch bootstraps text align for this. So to put this into effect, we're just going to make one single change. I'm going to come down here in the append message function. I was almost calling it addMessage again. In the append message function, and we're going to remove this, or rather, just comment it out, and then we're going to replace it with this code. We're going to say message element dot class list. Now we use dot add because we want to add more than one class. So first we want to add that message class, which is common between the two messages. That's both the user message and the chat message. Then we're going to take this condition to add the other message. Well, let me just write it. So the other one is going to be sender equals triple equal user, or just a single quote, single equal user. So if the sender is a user, now we're going to make use of the user message. Else, make use of the bot message class. Those are the two classes inside our style tag. So we have the message class that applies to both of them. Now if the sender is the user, just as we have here, use user message. Else, use bot message. So we have that. Save, and let's go back to our front end. I'm going to refresh this. And let's ask it our questions once more. Who is the current president of the United States? Let's click that. And now you can see this is prettier. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Prettier. So yeah, it tells us now it goes back to Joe Biden. The other time it was struggling and gave us Trump for some reason. So now it says Joe Biden, and I believe Trump was president till 2020. Yeah, 2016 to 2020. Now I'm not sure, but yeah, Joe Biden. It gives us Joe Biden this time, and if we ask it, when was he elected? And see, we keep getting the blue for the user message and keep getting the nice gray for the bot message. So when was he elected? He was 46th president, and he was elected 2020 and inaugurated, yeah, 20. So I think Trump and Biden kind of shared 2021. Trump a very tiny bit, so probably that's why the AI sometimes, gives diverse answers when it comes to that. So who did he run against? And definitely he ran against Trump. He ran against Trump. Yeah, he ran against Donald Trump. Did he hold any previous political office? Did he hold any previous political office? And did he? Yup, he did. Held several offices. For President 2022, served as Union Senator for 36 years. Wow, 36 years. I'm not even that 6 years yet. So, yeah, it was Vice President and under Barack Obama from 2009 to 2017. This guy has been in governance for a long time. Okay, so now we have our styling, and pretty cool, makes us distinguish things more and kind of makes the UI prettier. So that's how you can do better than this. Definitely, like I said previously, you can add a loading button or a loading indicator, like a progress bar. So when you click send, you have this guy grayed out and you have a loader here. Then when the message comes in, you swap the loader for the message. And also you can make this more pretty and more responsive to the actual length of the message. But for now, this is good enough for this demo, and we have been able to build our very own ChatGPT.